Sonic is gone, Amy, and Tails has just lost it.
I already know this video has a topic that has beat a horse to death, but I'm going to do this whether people like it or not. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to bring this horse back to life just to beat it to death again.
What in the world are you doing? You took longer than you were supposed to.
And Tails has just lost it.
You know, it's kind of funny how self-aware Sonic Team is these days, and if there's one character Sonic Team royally screwed up in Sonic Forces, it's Tails. From his lack of confidence in the story to his kind of creepy obsession with classic Sonic, it's easy to spot that Tails has some major problems with his writing in Forces. Although, Forces wasn't the first game to screw Tails up. Tails has had a number of inconsistencies throughout the Sonic games over the years, and to see where the real problem originates, we'll have to take a look all the way back to Modern Sonic's official debut, Sonic Adventure 1. Sonic Adventure has and always will have such a big legacy and following behind it. It wasn't just the big game that embodied the transition between the 3D and 2D Sonic, but did so many new and fresh things for the Sonic series, from musical style to game mechanics to voice acting, that I'd take up the whole video if I sat here and explained it all. In Sonic Adventure, the story is branched off into 6 different perspectives of the playable characters, and they're all brought together in the 7th and final story mode you unlock after beating the initial 6. Although the 6 playable stories all follow the same storyline, there are noticeable differences in each one, ranging from what's said by characters to stage length and composition. These differences somewhat make the game feel a bit inconsistent, but not in a way that ruins the experience. I mean, who'd want to play the same story 6 times just to get a final ending? So, Tails. The majority of Tails' story in this game is a mirror of the first half of Sonic's story. This is due to the fact that Tails pretty much just follows Sonic for the first half of the game up to the egg carrier. The difference is that in Tails' story, not only is it just from his perspective, but the dialogue is more inclusive around him rather than only focusing on Sonic. So unlike in Sonic's story, Tails feels less like a sidekick, but more of an equally capable acquaintance, which is good in any case.
If it isn't Sonic!
Look, it's a giant talking egg!
Silence! I am Dr. Robotnik, the greatest scientific genius in the world!
Whatever you say, Eggman!
Enough! I've got big plans, and now I'm gonna put them to work!
You're always up to no good. Now what do you want?
I want all of the Chaos Emeralds! Better not interfere! Or else!
Or else what, you big loser?
Or else I'll take them from you by force! The hard way!
Well, well, well. If it isn't Sonic
Wait, what's his name again? Okay.
and Tails.
It's Eggman!
Silence! I am Dr. Robotnik, the most cunning scientific genius in the world!
So for the first couple of stages, Tails has to beat Sonic in a race, which realistically wouldn't happen, but 99.9 times out of 10, AI are usually nerfed and dumb for player convenience and for plot, so of course it is light work to beat, especially since they gave Tails shortcuts in his version of the stages. So Sonic and Tails split apart 2 times in the story. The first when the tornado, which for some reason the Sonic's plane when Tails is the one who takes care of it. Like, can somebody explain that to me? Gets shot down by Eggman with his mighty egg carrier cannon or whatever.
Perfect!
And they crash in completely different places. The second time is when they finally get on the egg carrier, where Sonic tells Tails to split so that Tails can take Amy somewhere safe, and he can deal with Eggman and Chaos, once and for all. So after Tails gets back to Station Square with Amy, he sees Eggman.
Fuck off you fat useless sack of fucking Yankee tanky. Fuck off will you please?
At this point, Sonic has already defeated Chaos 6, leaving Eggman to think his plan has gone completely to ruin.
I'm finished. Chaos was defeated, and now my egg carrier is ruined.
In which he pulls his final trump card, a missile strike to flatten Station Square.
No matter. I will destroy Station Square anyway.
This is my last resort. This is my last resort.
Luckily for Tails and Amy, his plan was a complete failure because the missile ended up being a dud and not going off. It looks like Eggman wasn't exactly the best at rocket science, even with an IQ as high as his.
Hey, wait a second, okay, Jet? While Eggman may not look smart, he is. He has an IQ of 300 after all.
Warning, bullshit alert.
So in spite of his failure, Eggman quickly races to the big dud sitting in the middle of Station Square to try and reactivate it. This is Tails' big moment in the game. He witnessed Eggman's ultimate failure, and once he saw Eggman start moving towards the missile, he understood that stopping Eggman was up to him. Now a few moments into pursuing Eggman, the pressure starts to hit him hard, and the intensity of the situation makes him choke up. Out of some forlorn feeling, he calls Sonic for help.
The fate of Station Square depends on me. Sonic!
Then it happened. Reality hit, and Tails said the magic words.
I've changed a lot since I've started hanging with Sonic, but I can't depend on him forever. I know I can do this by myself. Okay, Eggman, bring it on!
From there, Tails races past Eggman,
Tails, wait for me!
deactivating the missile and aggravating Eggman seemingly to his breaking point.
Oh, you beat me to the missile, you little pest. I will make you all pay for this.
This leading our hero to the final battle.
Fight your rivals!
Where Eggman opened trying to demean and discourage Tails.
You fool. Away, before I make mincemeat out of you.
Fuck off, will you please?
I'm not scared. I'm not scared. I can do this.
Are you sure about that?
Get a load of this! No way! I can't believe this! No way! I can't... no way! I can't believe this! No way! I can't believe... no way! I can't believe...
Tails flies away a hero, and Eggman flies away with an L on his head bigger than Waluigi's when people learned he was only an assist trophy. This interaction between Tails and Robotnik is not only a big step for Tails' development as a character, but was also what I feel the real beginning of the rivalry of Eggman and Tails, which we saw carry over into future Sonic games, most notably Sonic Adventure 2. There's no debating the legacy Sonic Adventure 1 has, but if there's one time modern Sonic was able to take what he had in one game and make it even better in the next, Sonic Adventure 2 would be the ultimate example. Now in the Sonic fandom where people tend to have inconsistent opinions, there's been big wars on whether the two adventure games were actually good or just plain overrated. My input is that although these games have their flaws, these are some of the only Sonic games that I've been able to come back to consistently and have little to no frustrations with them. I can't say that about a lot of other modern Sonic games. They have personality, solid gameplay, good replayability, strong stories, and all-around likable characters. They were just 3D Sonic games that weren't perfect, but had an overall good quality and a sense of polish. It hurts to say this, but I personally don't think we've gotten a Sonic game with all those qualities in a single title sense, and that's not even mentioning the child. So all in all, I do believe that the two adventure games were the pinnacle of what modern Sonic should be, and I'd love it if Sonic Team got back to the point where we could get more adventure style games more often. Unfortunately, that just seems like a pipe dream considering Sonic Team's current state, but Iizuka himself did say that an Adventure 3 isn't out of the question, just that Sonic would have to evolve back to an adventure style of gameplay before we would see it again, whatever that means. So, Tails. In Sonic Adventure 2, we see Tails continue to become a little braver. We see him act in a way that shows he's breaking out of his shell, which proves he isn't as timid as he once was. From helping Sonic, who has pretty much been considered a terrorist at that point because of Shadow,
We interrupt this broadcast for an important news flash. There has been a break-in at the Federal Reserve Bank today. Mysteriously, the only thing that was stolen was the Chaos Emerald. According to eyewitnesses at the scene, the suspect was identified as the world-renowned hero, Sonic the Hedgehog. The suspect was seen fleeing the scene, destroying the reserve's guard robots in his path. Stay tuned for more details.
Like the work of Shadow.
From helping Sonic, who has pretty much been considered a terrorist, break out of a military prison and become a wanted fugitive himself in the process. He goes facing Eggman head-on without any of the fear or uncertainty he had in Sonic Adventure 1, and one of those times it was with Sonic being presumed dead, and both of those times it was with Amy's life being at stake. Although he got outwitted that second time and Eggman still snuck away at the Chaos Emerald that he was supposed to protect, his character still seemed to benefit from the experience enough. Maybe this newfound bravery in Sonic Adventure 2 was built up over the adventures Tails had in Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, or maybe it was because Tails was in his big strong cyclone the entire time. But after Sonic Adventure 2, the next couple of games put an emphasis more on teamwork, and the stories no longer put a big spotlight on individual side characters other than Shadow in his own self-titled game and Silver in Sonic 06. So the confidence Tails seemed to gain has just faded away over time. In Heroes, Shadow the Hedgehog and Sonic 06, Tails was just a sidekick, he was just there. He didn't add any spice to the story, he was just there to be a voice to figure shit out and say smart things, which made him pretty forgettable, to be honest.
It's not an Eggman robot. Sonic!
Yo, Tails! Long time no see!
Sonic, check this out!
Ha! Think I'd miss this?
Where's that damn fourth Chaos Emerald? Isn't that Tails?
Look at that!
A Chaos Emerald. This is just too easy.
Shadow! We're in big trouble! The black creatures are after the president's escape pod! We've got to stop them and save the president!
Shadow, go. Destroy that craft and kill their leader. Then watch its effect on the humanoids. Now, we will begin to exterminate all of the world's leaders who resist.
What?
Annihilation for this planet is near. It is time to embrace the dawn of your demise and despair.
Sir, are you all right?
We're gonna build the wall. We have no choice.
We're gonna win, win, win. You're gonna get so tired of winning.
In Sonic Riders, it's even more apparent he kind of lost the bits of confidence he had, because even though he put all the time and work into improving Sonic's Extreme Gear, which is very impressive considering he didn't have extensive knowledge on Extreme Gear, Wave gave this man the weakest roast in existence, and instead of Tails retaliating, it made him contemplate his entire life.
Still, how can a plank like that just float?
That's easy to explain. According to the Kutta-Joukowski lift theorem, the control surface flow is balanced by the inverse kinetics of the...
Stop! I get it, okay? It just floats, and that's good enough for me. Huh?
Sorry, but it's just too funny. Huh? That gear's unusual.
Customized it myself.
Well, I never imagined anyone would enter the race with such a piece of junk.
In both of the Storybook series games, Tails' doppelgangers that resemble him being
Dolly Baba
and a blacksmith, so any role that he plays isn't really Tails, just a character Tails is representing. Now, to present my opinion on Sonic Unleashed, I got my boy Ryan over here to give you guys a few words. Ryan, take it away.
Alright, so boom. Now in Sonic Unleashed, Sonic dumps his best friend and biggest fan for this little dick ass named Chip. Chip took Tails' place as a designated sidekick for the entirety of the game, and as a result, Tails got downgraded to the designated Uber driver that you see him just flying around in the tornado taking his nigga places.
Where is my destination?
Get out of my car now! You are at the hospital! Administration is right here!
I'm going to the emergency room, sir.
Get in there! Get out of my car now!
His lack of presence in the story makes him the perfect candidate to be the driver in the Sonic Unleashed nutshell video by Maxim, because in actuality, that's all he amounts to in Sonic Unleashed. All he does is give Sonic a ride in the tornado or whatever, when it's seemingly convenient. You may see Tails in a cutscene or two talking to the professor, but at the same time, you might forget that Tails isn't even in the game. Now, Unleashed did go back to some of the roots established in the duology of Sonic Adventure, including a renewed Sky Chase event gameplay. Although there were some adventure references, the writers did little to nothing with Tails as a character, here like to the degree in either of the adventure games. So his role in the story just sticks out as some unnecessary bullshit that bridges Sonic's constant travels across the world. Professor Dickel tells Sonic where to go and Tails just gets him there. So that's it, a designated Uber driver. But while we're on the subject, I will forever lament Unleashed for turning the Sky Chase scene into a QuickTime event. Fucking bitch.
How dare you reduce my finely hewn Keflian style into mere mother gooseries?
The new Wisp Order.
With the release of Sonic Colors also came a sort of soft reboot for modern Sonic. From the implementation of the Wisp to the change in writing, tone, and dialogue to make Sonic less dark in the series as a whole, it's hard not to consider the changes to the Sonic franchise as a whole that came with Sonic Colors as anything other than a reboot of a sort. For Sonic and Tails, this new installment put a highlight on their adventure into Eggman's latest and greatest amusement park in space, because why waste time building on solid ground? Actually, never mind, he already did that in Sonic Unleashed. Guess he had to reach for the stars there. But this whole situation almost makes it feel like Colors went back to Sonic's classic roots, focusing the story around a light-hearted Sonic and Tails adventure while stopping whatever sinister thing Eggman was working on in the background. Now, because the game only focused on Sonic and Tails, we got a quick reminder of one big thing after all these years of storybooks, spin-offs, and edgy characters, which is the fact that this duo is the backbone that the series started on, and to see just Sonic and Tails back together is definitely refreshing, and at the same time it just gives some more solid evidence to the fact that this game's a reboot. So, Tails in this game seem to be more down to earth, despite the ironic fact the game takes place in space. The questionable changes in the writing and dialogue of Colors made Sonic and Tails feel a bit more human, with the overabundance of small talk giving them brighter personalities. And the game doesn't feel tense because they weren't concerned about Eggman with every breathing moment. It definitely feels more carefree as they took time to relax and absorb their surroundings, party with the Wisp a bit, and prove their superiority to the laws of copyright infringement.
No copyright law in the universe is going to stop me!
Now, although Tails didn't really catch any taste of the action in this game, he did re-establish himself as the second voice after his break from Unleashed, where he gives that good advice so that we don't have to hear Sonic talk to himself the entire game. And since this is Roger Craig Smith's Sonic we're talking about here, he probably would have talked to himself for the entire game. we've definitely flipped the script from Shut Up Tails to Shut Up Sonic. This lack of action or involvement for Tails was due to him spending the majority of the game making a translator for Yacker, the Wisp who was trying to tell the duo what happened to him and his planet. Other than that, the only significant thing Tails did was jump in the way of Eggman's mind control beam, which it wouldn't have mattered if he caught Sonic with the beam anyway, because Eggman only had a limited supply of energy that lasted upwards to a few seconds. Although, when Sonic tries to tell Tails that Tails was pretty useless because Tails had all the time to go window shopping in Tropical Resort, but not enough to actually do anything else, this boy had a pretty sassy clapback.
You did it, dude.
We? I don't remember you fighting off any insane robots.
True. Well, good job to you on inventing a translator that allowed us to speak to the aliens and figure out exactly what we needed to do so we weren't running around the park looking like idiots. Oh no, wait. That was me.
Now, in Sonic Lost World, this sass Tails gathered up in that last moment of colors lasts pretty much the entire game of Lost World, and God knows why they called it Lost World when there's almost no adventure or exploration aspect to the game's level design, or to the Wii U's version at least, unless you feel like spending your time exploring for all the red rings. So it should have just been called Sonic and the Deadly Six, or and that also would have been pretty wrong because the Deadly Six are nowhere to be deadly, to be honest. What we're gonna do is we're gonna call this one Tails Lost Patience from now on. So in Sonic Colors 2, Lost World, Lost Patience, Tails actually lost his patience, and I can't blame him. Years of being nothing but a side character must have gotten to his head, and he definitely suffered through some pain because of Sonic's hasty and aimless actions in Lost World. Oh, excuse me again, Lost Patience. So because of that, he no longer held back some of his more harsher opinions and sassy attitude when he had a chance to let it out. This phase of Tails started when Tails took collateral damage as a result of Sonic not considering the consequences of his actions. When Sonic kicked the conch out of Eggman's hand, he thought nothing of it, but it was ultimately one of the dumbest things Sonic's ever done.
That was a mistake. Whatever.
Which is why it's understandable why Tails got so moody. Tails' moodiness mixed with his cockiness he displayed multiple times throughout the game almost got him injured again, because there's this one time he decided to throw all the shade and was being sarcastic at Eggman.
Truly, your robots are a reflection of your genius, Dr. Eggman.
And thinking he can make Cubot more useful, like that's possible, by putting his head on a Batnik, and it only ends up blowing up in his face. From not only Eggman saving his life in that instance, but mixed that with Tails eventually getting abducted by the Deadly Six and almost being turned into a robot, Tails eventually humbles himself, and by the end of the game it feels like he's back to normal. His cockiness turns back into the small bits of confidence that he had, and it's no longer with the spice or sass we had before. So albeit a wild ride, Tails seemed to calm down and go back to normal by the end of the game. I'm not gonna lie, I was ready to rip Tails a new one when going into this game initially, but from the way Tails is written in colors, him acting this way is more believable and consistent with the way he acted in the previous title. By this point in the series, some sort of growth for Tails was long overdue, and I think this could be a nice turning point for the character, as long as he doesn't end up this moody again in the future. For some people, the Sonic Boom depiction of Tails seems to be the perfect blend of what Tails should be, but unfortunately, for those people, Boom as a whole is just one big joke to the writers, and they'll never take it anywhere. Funny how it takes an alternate universe to give us Tails that we don't have many problems with. For us in the main series, we have to deal with the atrocious version of Tails we had in Forces,
Whoa, that's harsh!
which after his somewhat confusing performance in Colors and Colors 2, was the nail in the coffin for the character to some people.
You know how much that bites?
We went from Tails lost patience to Tails lost all sense of the fact that he can actually beat Chaos, but he didn't really want to beat Chaos for some reason. And yeah. So I close asking you guys this question. Was Tails really misrepresented in Forces, or did Forces just expose a bigger problem that Tails had to begin with? Find out in the next and last installment of this drawn out, milked series, The Chronicle of Tails.
In your face, Eggman!
Think about that. Think about that.
I never meant to be your favorite enemy. I didn't want it this way. Face to face, we'll finally find a remedy as our worlds collide tonight.
Well, when our forces collide, at least, anyway.
People lose their minds.
Sonic Forces, the game infamous for being the embodiment of mediocrity. I think it's fair to say that the marketing for this game was spot on at first, but the end result wasn't as fleshed out or as interesting as we thought it would be, and is arguably part of the reason why the game was as disappointing as it is. I can understand why people may not like this game, but people treat this game like it's bad enough to be the next Sonic 06, which I honestly can't seem to fathom. This game may not have been the big game we thought it was going to be, and it suffered from a lack of proper development time due to the focus on making Hedgehog Engine 2, but I think honestly it also was hurt by the lack of development after its release.
Shut your dumb ass up for a minute. Thank you. Alright, listen, it's 2018. If you really cared about your game, you would either have it done on the release date, or you would try and fix the mistakes that were due on the release date with some DLC and updates. That's also a great way to fix your mistakes for something that wasn't well received. So this just goes to show how lazy Sonic Team could be when it comes to stuff like this. And you would think releasing a big title like Sonic on a game system that doesn't have as much big titles as the Switch would give enough motivation to create a good and finished game. You'd think they would have done something, but as it turns out, they're just as lazy as anyone else thought they were, or maybe I'm just crazy.
There are a bunch of fair arguments and criticisms against why Forces isn't a solid game, but the reason why Forces is considered mediocre is because it did a lot of things right and just about the same number of things wrong, if not more. People blinded by discontent, disappointment, or resentment for the current state of Sonic might not be able to, but I feel like it's only fair to give this game credit where credit's due, despite the controversy around the title. Unfortunately, that's for another video, another day, because we're here to take an in-depth look at how Sonic Team used our favorite little fox in its day. So,
you beat me to the missile, you little pest.
For the last time, Tails. Where do I begin?
Smart enough. Huh? Whoa, chaos! Sonic, help!
You know what? I'm gonna save my thoughts on this scene for last. For now, I think a better place to begin is the interactions Tails had with Sonic.
You've gotten sloppy and weak. You would never have fallen for that move before. Look at you. You've ignored your training, and you've turned against all of your friends.
You dodged my spin attack. Nobody's ever done that before.
Oh, wait, it's something else. Gotta scan him and figure this out.
How are you doing? Tails? I need to know what's going on with this guy.
Whoa, this guy is faster than Sonic.
Nobody's ever done that before.
So the relationship Tails builds with classic Sonic starts off innocent enough, Sonic saves him in front of Chaos, Tails asks him 20 questions, and they go off together in pursuit of Eggman. Funny how once Sonic got there, Tails decided to go straight for Eggman, you know, despite the circumstances, mixing that with the fact that he was completely scared and useless of Eggman when all Eggman had was a few robots. But anyway, at the very least, it's good to see Tails motivated to actually do something, even if he isn't doing it by himself. So, yeah. They follow Eggman to Green Sand Hill.
Strange. I see desert over there. This is Green Hill, right? Something is wrong.
You're still calling it Green Hill, despite the fact there's obviously sand. They arrive just in time to listen in on him and Infinite talk about the Phantom Ruby prototypes, while also learning
That's a genuinely shocking fact.
After Infinite leaves, Classic Sonic jumps in, ready to square up with Eggman, but Eggman was just, annoyed. He was just done with the Classic Sonic. Tries to run off, but you can't run from Sonic.
You're not fast.
So in this boss fight, Eggman starts off praising his own genius and something's power exceeding his expectation, and people assume that it's dumb for him to be so happy about having a little chainsaw attached to his Eggmobile, but he just had a whole conversation about the power of the Phantom Ruby with Infinite, so I'm 300% sure he was talking about the Phantom Ruby itself and not the pathetic little saw he had dangling there from his Eggmobile. But I get it, bad writing, yada yada yada. So there's a bit of back and forth between Tails and Eggman here that you'll see continue on later in the game. It starts off kind of petty, but it's nice to see that they still express the rivalry between Eggman and Tails, despite Tails just sitting in the background in this game. So after Eggman was done playing around with the Egg Viper 2, it would be the Egg Viper 3, but Sonic 06 isn't canon. So yeah, he had that for some reason. He just had it laying around in Green Sand Hill for some reason. I don't know why. After that, Eggman told him of his master plan to pretty much delete the entire Resistance at once. After that, they finally meet up with the Resistance, and
It's been generations since I've seen you.
And Jesus Christ, Sonic, that wasn't necessary. Jesus. Now, after the idiotic plan that was
Operation Big Wave.
80% of our forces have been wiped out, and we've lost contact with the rest.
Exactly.
the Resistance figures out that they need to find the Phantom Ruby's weakness if they were going to win. So Tails nominates young, innocent Sonic to come with him to infiltrate the chemical plant and find Eggman's database.
I just shut up for a minute. I gotta say something. So taking a look at this game and the lack of classic Sonic's voice, it was basically Tails' job to give this little boy dialogue. And that shit honestly sucked. But when the plot needed something convenient to happen, Thing 1 and Thing 2 there were always there just to take the spot. When everyone else had some important shit to do, I guess. So it basically just added up with Tails asking Classic Sonic to do something, or Knuckles asking your OC to do something. Not that there's anything wrong with your little furry creature, but Sega already flushed out so many likable Sonic characters and just decided not to use them in this game. The only two side characters that ever got screen time were really Silver and Shadow. Shadow's role was basically to be like the Vegeta in the Cell Saga when he was fighting up against second form Cell, and then when Cell came back as Perfect Cell with his sexy ass jawline and just clapped everyone's cheeks because no one was not strong enough to stop him. And I guess you can say Silver was Trunks, but no one was as cool as Trunks. And everyone else in the Sonic universe doesn't have time for ass whoopings until the end of the game. But we all kind of are glad that we got to see some of our favorite faces in the game, regardless if they weren't doing anything relevant to the plot, more or less just running around doing dumb shit. And for that fact, we can really only blame the writers for not learning how to flesh out these characters properly, even though they've been fleshed out before through so many iterations of Sonic. But I did hear the original writer of the adventure games is willing to come back to start writing for more future Sonic games. Hopefully this means that Knuckles can go back to being a dumbass and Roach being a little slut.
When looking into Eggman's database, Tails and Classic Sonic find the big flaw to the Phantom Ruby, as well as a little nugget of gold about Eggman.
Okay, failed battle plans, old robot designs. Wow, he's got like 10 terabytes of selfies.
From there, Tails sends Classic Sonic into space to destroy the Death Egg because they thought that was the Death Egg was the power source. Well, when they confront Eggman again, they think Infinite won't be as strong, but turns out they got jebaited, and the Death Egg wasn't the actual power source of the Phantom Ruby.
What is that? Arr, arr. That, my spiky little predator, is null space. Null space? It's a little something that the Phantom Ruby cooked up. A closed-off space where absolutely nothing exists. Goodbye, Sonic, my soon-to-be-eradicated nemesis. Enjoy all the nothing.
But we destroyed the Phantom Ruby's power source.
Tisk, tisk. Since you always destroy the power source of my weapons, I decided to learn from my mistakes. I had a backup power source created under Metropolis.
But before you finish that, I gotta say that my boy Eggy was killing it in this game, yo. First of all, they didn't make him look like a jackass by giving him some dumbass dialogue. And he didn't give any big major plans to those little robotic testicles over there who's always fucking shit up. I'm honestly glad to see him back as the menacing doctor that we all love.
Hey, hello, come here, donkeys. Here we go. We started. Come here. What is that? It's alright. What is that? What is that? What is that? Fuck off, will you?
I'm missing an arm. Have you got an arm?
You're shit. You are so shit you don't realise what you're doing.
Anyway, so once Sonic and his buddy get back from null space and the Resistance makes a strong push of Metropolis, Eggman retreats to his tower to get the final phase of his plan ready. This leading the war against Eggman to, the final phase as a whole, where the big final battle took place. This was the point where everybody got their little participation trophy for being in the game. It was like the whole essence of other characters being in the game was all saved for this one last big fight. And for some reason, Tails is nowhere to be seen in this cutscene.
Why'd you leave me? Were you thinking of me dead? Do you love me? Then where are you if you do?
Once Infinite is done playing around, he uses the majority of his power to activate his final technique.
I'll finish this. Heaven conceal.
It was at this moment, after all the years of Tails saying smart things to all his friends, and Tails said what can be considered the biggest and most important thing he's ever said. He told the created character the potential of the Phantom Ruby prototype the Avatar had in his hand.
3, 2, 1, 0.
And because of that, the Avatar was able to get to the top of Eggman's tower in time to rid the sky of the sun completely. Not the actual sun, silly. Like, come on. This not only a big deal because that little nugget of information not only saved pretty much every important character in the Sonic canon, but it was also the most significant thing Tails has done in a Sonic game since stopping Eggman from blowing up Station Square all the way in Sonic Adventure 1, and it's arguably even more significant than that. So after everything is said and done, and Tails has to say goodbye to Classic Sonic,
sometimes you don't say goodbye once. You say goodbye over and over and over again.
restore the world or whatever, and that's all. The final bit to Tails' long and slightly complicated story has finished, and the Chronicle is complete.
I've got you now, Tails.
I sacrifice my Queen's Knight, my Jack's Knight, and my King's Knight!
He is! The servers are the 7 Chaos. Chaos is power.
The ancient chant. He knows.
Power is enriched by the heart. The controller is the one that unifies the chaos.
But first I shall call out thy name!
Only you can do this.
I summon chaos! Come forth!
Well, the end of the story it would be if there wasn't a bigger underlying problem here. No, I'm not referring to how Sonic Tails tells.
Cheer up, Tails. I'm sure we'll run into him again.
When literally Sonic's right next to you.
Idiot friends.
In the case of seeing classic Sonic, I mean actual classic Sonic again, I just have one condition, which is if it's a game, just make sure Tails is playable. Now, I did mention the kind of creepy obsession with classic Sonic Tails has. It's something that you can't always see, but when you look a little deeper into the story, it just sticks out a little bit that Tails just wanted to spend so much time with little young boy Sonic there, and it just has a bad undertone. Albeit not to the degree we would have to call a Predator's Chris Hansen in to ask Tails to take a seat.
Have a seat, please. All right, Michael, have a seat. I want to talk to you for a little bit. How you doing tonight?
Good.
What are you doing here? Tails?
I'm sorry. That's not the big underlying problem I'm referring to here, especially if you consider that canonically, classic Sonic and Tails are actually around the same age, even if Tails seems like the older, more mature individual. To express, or should I say to expose the problem here, we need to take a look at the cutscene I put on hold when I started to talk about Tails and Forces, which is the Chaos video. This scene is probably the most crucial cutscene for understanding Tails, and it's pretty ironic because this cutscene has also been despised for both Tails' performance and for it being the last time we actually see Chaos do anything in the game. But hear me out. Instead of focusing on what Tails did, on how he reacted, on what he was doing, I ask you, what wasn't Tails doing? Even looking at the cutscene where Sonic saves him from Eggman's robots, which then led to Sonic getting jumped and captured, what isn't Tails doing in either of these cutscenes?
Well, no shit, Nistro. This little boy pussy. He ain't gonna be out there fighting.
First off, There's a sir in front of my name for a reason. I would suggest that you use it.
Oh, my bad, sir.
You know, I'm just kidding.
I'm only
right?
kidding. Don't get your
I
panties
freaking love
in
you,
a
Ryan.
bunch.
Okay, there's no hostility here. Just saying.
What are you doing? Are you mad?
But more importantly, have you wondered why Tails isn't fighting in either of the cutscenes? In the Sonic vs. Team Eggman one, you can argue that Tails was trying to figure out Infinite's power, but the situation escalated too quickly for him to do anything, honestly, especially since Tails very intelligently deducted,
"This guy's faster than Sonic."
Which I think would be the fairest argument in that case. There's no debate. You can get mad at Tails all you want for just standing there, but if Tails would have jumped in, he just would have gotten himself hurt or killed just as badly as Sonic did, and honestly, the situation would be no different. Well, what about the Chaos scene then? You know, it doesn't make any sense that Tails would cower and call uncle to Chaos Zero when he fought Chaos 4 in Sonic Adventure, so why didn't he fight then? Well, do I have some news for you? Because to all of you who think that fight actually happened, because the fight between Tails and Chaos 4 is as real as the illusions that the Phantom Ruby conjures up. Because if that fight happened, that also means Tails fought Knuckles before Chaos 4. And if that fight happened, that also means Tails fought Gamma, E102 Gamma, on the egg carrier, which in both situations we know it was Sonic. Especially if you reference it with the other two character stories, they're fighting Sonic, they're not fighting Tails. As I mentioned in the first Tails video, the majority of Tails' story in Sonic Adventure is just a mirror of the first half of Sonic's story. Although Tails was at Sonic's side half the time, he wasn't really a significant character. He barely did anything, and honestly, he didn't add a lot to the story by being there. So all that jazz that Tails did after the fact, and you know, with the missile and fighting Eggman, was the only time in Tails' history, in relation to the games, that we saw him fight for himself with no type of help or support. Now, do you remember those very crucial magic words Tails said to himself right before doing all that missile stuff? Let me refresh your memory.
The fate of Station Square depends on me. Sonic!
Then it happened. Reality hit, and Tails said the magic words.
I've changed a lot since I've started hanging with Sonic, but I can't depend on him forever. I know I can do this by myself. Okay, Eggman, bring it on!
Now, to be fair, Sonic Team did apply this mentality to Sonic Adventure 2. In Adventure 2, Tails is in the battle mode version of his plane, the Tornado, codename Cyclone. Tails spends the entirety of the game in the Cyclone, and even though he was with Sonic some of the time, we saw him pushing to do more things by himself, from breaking Sonic out of prison, to locating the president, to finding the entrance to Eggman's pyramid by himself, and even fighting Eggman by himself multiple times, like I said before.
But like I said before, Tails is pussy when it comes to fighting, especially when you gotta fight against Chaos. The only time he ever grew as a character was in Sonic Adventure, and we really haven't seen any growth since with his character.
You get that, right? So then why did Tails never continue that trend? You know, we could just blame it on the rotation of writers Sonic Team had, but that's the easy way out. Because despite the change in writers and writing styles, it seems one thing stayed consistent through and past the Adventure era. One thing, which is what Chaos exposed about Tails in Forces. For Tails to be at his best, or even functional at any level, Tails needs something to hide behind. In recent years, it's been funny how self-aware Sonic Team has been with their jokes, you know, outside of the writing in games, but in Sonic Forces, this self-awareness Sonic Team had for Tails' history led to them making Tails hide and cower more times than he ever has in a single game. But as I also mentioned, he also did the single most important thing he's ever done. So the biggest disappointment isn't that they kept Tails' character somewhat consistent in Forces, it's more that it's disappointing that Tails was never given the chance by the writers to break out of that pattern, grow as a character, and do something himself other than say smart things. Like he told himself that he would do all the way back in Sonic Adventure 1. If there's one way I think Sonic Team could fix this in their future Sonic games, it would just be to make Tails playable again, so that their writers can put him into more situations where he can actually do something himself. I honestly think the best way to do this, and call me crazy, but I say to bring the mechs from Sonic Adventure 2 back. More specifically, Tails' version, although I wouldn't mind having Eggman playable again. You can find it ironic that I say this because of how much people don't like the mechs, but if Tails doesn't have some sort of technology that helps in more ways than just communicating, then he'll never crack out of the shell that he seems to be in. Thank you all for watching. I really hope you guys enjoyed the Chronicle of Tails series, and I honestly don't know if I'll ever put as much effort into another character analysis again, unless I feel there's a real big enough reason to delve so deep into the character's history. For Tails, I spent so much time explaining how Tails is used in each game to kind of put more emphasis on the fact, on the point that I made at the end there. And you know, with the history Tails has in this series, you would think that he would be on a caliber of equal importance to Sonic by now, but for some reason Sonic Team refuses to give Tails a more important role in the games, and it's honestly a bit sad, so I can't help but feel bad for the guy. But moving on, you can expect the next analysis video to be on Infinite and how he was used in Sonic Forces, plus some of my own theories of how some of certain aspects of the story work out. You can expect it to be as long as the Silver video, if not shorter. So I have been your host, Sir Nistro, co-hosted by my boy Ryan. Check him out. Until the next tale, peace out. Actually, I actually did start working on the Infinite video a little early, so I decided to give you guys a little preview of what's to come in the next analysis video. You might want to put on headphones for this one, since it's a little stereo, but hope you guys enjoy. See you on the next one.
Have you ever given any thought to the fate of your children? Made good progress.